Hello everyone, my name is Alexandria Mello and I am the writer, director, editor, and overall just creator of the short film Misty's Garden. I want to first start by saying that I am a huge hippie chick at heart, so this whole sort of story is very much influenced kind of by what I would want to be if I was a witch. It's practical magic meets AHS coven. Speaking of American Horror Story, these title sequences are sort of inspired by that in Seven. I like the idea of having footage that corresponds not only with the film, but also with the title that's on screen. Like if you notice Emma Adams, it was a lily being watered. So at the end you're like, oh, like that's why that's like that, so you can kind of piece all the puzzle pieces together, the little Easter eggs that you find. I love finding little Easter eggs in movies and TV shows that I watch. So I just like doing that in my own stuff. Speaking of Easter eggs, I don't know if anybody caught this, but there is a little sign here. It says, "Bloom where you are planted." I saw that. I just thought, oh my God, that is just so unbelievably perfect for this film. For this opening scene, there was a lot of audio issues that I ran into because on the one day that I was actually able to film this, my neighbors decided that they wanted to cut down all their trees. So throughout this entire pretty much sequence of her being outside and her seeing Lillian for the first time, there's a chainsaw throughout the whole background of everything. So what I did was I took the ambient sound from another clip that I took of some birds on the feeder, and I just sort of layered that underneath all of the clips. So what you're hearing for the first pretty much 2 minutes of the film is actually that. This is probably one of my favorite scenes throughout the whole film because it just makes me laugh every single time. I literally love it when she drops the watering can. I laugh every single time. I think it's just so priceless and funny because especially if you knew these girls, it's just the relationship that they have is just so adorable, and seeing it on screen with these characters is just so fitting, and it's just so funny. I hate how overexposed the walkway is. It makes me crazy. If you notice, that little pillow sort of drops. It's a little bit spooky, but it's also super unintentional because what ends up happening is my actress sits, but if you notice, I cut her head off. And that is by design because as soon as she sits down, she sits on the pillow and then laughs for like a solid 25 seconds of all of that. So I cut in that insert of her filling up the lemonade because A, to show what was going on, but B, because I physically had to cut that scene out. This patio scene was the first footage that we got of this film, so everybody was still very new at it. We didn't really know exactly how to go about filming, what ways would work to get the footage that we needed. So unfortunately, we just sort of ran it from the beginning to the end in different angles, and I think that it followed the script completely, but the dialogue was a little bit choppy, and I wish that I would have told them to improvise a little bit more. I think that everything would have flowed a lot better, but like I said, after editing it, it came out a lot better. I really want to shout out these two girls because honestly, it is crazy how well they did for their first time really acting on screen, and the parts that they played were very fitting to who they are. I think that Jillian plays a very good witchy sorcerer, and Emma is just the perfect victim. We shot this scene of her falling so many times. Every time she would just either get scared or she wasn't necessarily falling in the right spot. So after like 4 takes, this was the one that was workable. The basement scene. So now if you guys know, if anybody who knows me and has seen my basement knows that this is not what my basement looked like 3 days before I started filming. I took a can of white paint and I went to town, and then me and my actresses just went crazy with the spray paint. We looked up a bunch of different pagan symbols, all positive, because I was not trying to get a demon in my house. That was not the goal for this film. Did not want to get possessed. So we looked up all the positive sort of pagan symbols and we spray painted all over the place. My basement still looks like a straight up cult. But fun fact, you should always use ventilation when using spray paint. When it was just me, I was doing the back wall. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, so I just closed all the doors and I just went to town, and I just started to feel like a little bit woozy, but I was fine. Everything was great, and my basement looks cool, so I'm not even mad about it. So as you can see, during this scene, Misty is sort of twirling around, and that's because a huge inspiration for this film was Stevie Nicks. And I had intended on using her music throughout, but unfortunately, due to copyright, that would have been next to impossible. So instead, I spent about, 100 hours looking for music in classical and pop and rock and just everything. And finally, I stumbled across Dance Macabre, and I loved it. It fit perfectly. So I was like, sweet, awesome. But turns out, just because it's copyright free in the United States, it's not copyright free in other countries. So YouTube has been giving me a little bit of a problem with that. So if I ever want to distribute it outside of the United States, I'm going to have to go back and pretty much change all the music, which is kind of a pain. But this transition shot from Emma, aka Lillian, to the potted lily plant is something that I was really nervous about, but with the sound effects, I love it. I think that it works really well. I tried to match up the necklaces as well as I could to make sure it kind of flowed perfectly into one another, and then everything else was just kind of sound effects. So now the Aunt Delia character, now that was something that happened after the original script had already been written. And it was a Halloween decoration that our main character, Misty's dad, was so kind to let us use. And it was just so beautiful and so perfect and creepy that I was inspired. And I created a whole backstory on this woman, Aunt Delia. And she pretty much taught Misty everything she knows about botany and pills and potions. And she was someone of high class and wealth. And so every time Misty takes another victim, she bestows this token of gratitude to Delia in the form of necklaces and earrings and all sorts of different kind of jewels. So now at this point we see Lillian being planted in the ground by Misty, and we know now that all of the surrounding plants are pretty much hostages. They are people that Misty has stalked and profiled and pretty much brought back to her home to take as a hostage, and we're watching this girl and we almost feel bad for her. She's this sweet, innocent looking person, but yet there is this malevolent side to her, and it's crazy. One of the things that I really wanted to establish with this film was the fact that Lillian is not Misty's first victim, nor will she be her last. She is just looking at her next victim, and she is just chomping at the bit to just get her in her clutches, and it's absolutely fantastic. Gillian did such an incredible job with this role. She really did. And this final scene with the transition from her to Aunt Delia, it is just so much better than I had anticipated. I really wanted something that sort of closed off this film in a creepy way, but also that got the feel of the film, and I just think that this really did that. I had such a wonderful time creating this film, and this is my baby. I've made quite a few films in the past few years, but this really is something that I'm very much excited for, and I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of what I created. I'm very proud of the people that I got to work with. I'm very proud of the final product, and I hope that you all enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. I thank you. My name is Alexandria Mello, and I am the creator of Misty's Garden. Thank you very much.